We're going to get started right at 7:30 Central Time. Um, in the meantime, I'm gonna get a survey up and running. Just one moment. Q&A should be open. Chat should also be open as you guys listen to the presentation. If you have questions, feel free to throw them directly into the chat. While we're waiting for folks to dial in, if you could throw in the chat where you're dialing in from and the name of your practice, that would be great. I'm calling in from Chicago this evening. Okay, as you guys are dialing in, thank you everybody for joining. As you're dialing in, there should be a poll up that asks you to rank the terms that you are most, least, and not at all interested in discussing here. We have joining us in a moment here will be Shane Shepard, and he will be able to go deep into any of the questions, any of the terms that we want to go into, and we want to make sure that we address the things that you are most interested in. Welcome, Brittany. Welcome, Julie. All right. As you guys continue to dial in, and thank you for joining, there should be a poll up with terms you'd like to go over. Please rank them in order of interest as you're going. Hey, Shane, welcome.
Hey, there, everyone.
All right. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Again, I appreciate everybody's punctuality and for being here early and your participation in the poll. It'll help us custom build this presentation for you guys. And Shane, as long as folks are coming in, I had some folks in the chat answer where they're dialing in from. Where are you coming in from today? And I'm going to step away and get that cup of tea I told you about.
Okay, where am I coming from today? Is
Yeah,
that?
where are you dialing in from?
Oh, I'm in Austin, Texas. If anybody is not a Longhorn fan, I don't hold that against me. And but yeah, it's good to be with y'all. Y'all probably will hear my accent. I know you do. So it's good to talk with all you guys and gals. Thank y'all for coming, and we'll just have a good chat tonight, and hopefully go over some things and help everybody understand the lay of the land. Some of this will be, I'm sure you already will know some of these terms, and some hopefully we'll go through some stuff that maybe will help you wade through all the minutia of it all. So it's my
Yeah,
pleasure. Thank you, Steve, for putting all this together.
it is my pleasure to have you, and to be able to provide this kind of education is tremendously valuable. As you say, right? We've got a ton of terms that we can go over, and there's a lot of overlap in those terms. So the ability to come out here and provide a lot of clarity to everybody on this call, hopefully answer their direct questions as well as general terms. So thank you, everybody, for your participation. It's actually giving us a really good insight into what we'd like to cover. So thank you for that. Got lots of folks coming in from all over the country. We got Louisiana, we've got Ohio, we've got Washington State, we got Florida, we got Virginia, we got another Florida, we got Texas, we got Illinois.
Yeah, we've got several states. So Ohio beat Texas. I don't want to take everything to football. But and then I'm going to Florida this weekend to watch the Longhorns play Florida. So hopefully it's not a trend of people attending this webinar and then whipping the Longhorns. But yeah. So and I'm from Louisiana. I don't know where in Louisiana the individual's from, but
Denham Springs.
Denham Springs. That sounds familiar. Is anybody else getting an echo?
I am
Back.
not hearing an echo.
Okay, there you go from Baton Rouge. Hey, Brittany. Yeah, I grew up in a little town. Is anybody else getting no echo? I grew up in, thank y'all. I grew up in a little town about an hour north of Lake Charles and went to college in a directional school in Louisiana or Louisiana, if you're from there, that's how you say it, Louisiana. But yeah, that's great. The Tigers are doing well. Oh, I
All
appreciate y'all
right.
taking time in your evening to spend with
All
us.
right.
So,
Everybody, thank you so much. Like Shane said, everybody, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to hit record so we have a record of this. As you've registered, as you've attended, you will get a copy of this recording for your review so you can go back and ask deeper dive questions. But recording has begun. And I'm sure people will trickle in as we go. But once again, thank you everybody for taking the time out of your evening to be here. My name is Steve Alexander. I am head of growth at Anagram. I've been in eye care for nearly 25 years now, and it is my privilege to work with Shane Shepard, who is our head of RCM. Shane, if you wouldn't mind a little bit of an introduction, and then we'll dive
Sure.
right in.
Yeah. So I'm head of RCM, so fancy term for billing nerd. And I've been doing optometric billing for the most of my career. After school, I went to work at a health insurance company. I did that for 5 or 6 years and kind of stumbled into a job in optometry, realized that there was a lack of knowledge on the medical side of this. And then the rest of this time has been in various iterations of billing, both working at a practice and at some corporations. This is my second go around with building an RCM product and offering for the market. And every time you do it a little better. And I think we've got something really special going on here at Anagram and proud to be a part of it. But rest assured, tonight is not a hard pitch. I will be trying to help you, but we do have a product that helps providers and optometrists do medical billing and manage vision care billing.
Excellent. Thank you, Shane. All right. So, everybody, thank you so much for being here, for answering the poll. It looks like there are very few things that there is no interest in, but quite a few things that there is extreme interest in. So, as let's dive right into the thing where there is the most extreme interest, which is in codes. Now, codes is obviously a broad term. So, Shane, as we get started, when we say codes in this context, what are we talking about generally?
Yeah, I mean, when you say that to me, I think of procedure codes and diagnosis codes, right? And so diagnosis codes are ICD-10s. They used to be ICD-9s. And so there's a different code set, but everybody is in 10 now, ICD-10. And so diagnosis codes and procedure codes, CPTs, current procedure terminology. And so what you did and why you did it, right? And so the CPTs are what you did, and the ICD-10s are why you did it. Yeah. There's also HIT pick codes. And so, there's a distinction there. On materials, you see V codes, like V 2020, 2025, and for contact lenses. And so those are technically called HCPCS, HCPS codes. And so those are all the different terms. But really, most people would just think of the HCPCS as diagnosis codes. They're both diagnosis codes. Yeah.
So, given
Or
how many
procedure codes,
different
my bad. Procedure codes, my bad. Yeah. Sorry, Steve.
given how many different kinds of codes there are, what are the most common pitfalls that you run into working with practices when it comes to coding? Is it just like a misdiagnosis? Where do modifiers come in? What are the pitfalls of doing this incorrectly?
Yeah, okay. You stop me when I say too much here.
You
So,
got it.
yeah. So the procedure codes, if the doctor is performing the exam and closing out the record prior to the invoice being created, let's assume everybody here is using an EHR in a PM system. Um, so if you're doing that, then sometimes a source of error, I'm kind of going to go through this chronologically uh, through the patient experience. So as the doctor is recording that, if they can create the record, close that out, then that data should transfer to the invoice, right? Both the diagnosis codes and procedure codes. What happens sometimes is the doctor maybe isn't as fast as they want to be, feels like this is slowing things down, doesn't close that out before the practice creates the invoice, and then those codes don't come over, right? No one knows better than the doctor what was done and why it was done, right? And so if they go tell the front desk, a lot of times fittings go missing. Maybe that wasn't apparent that the fitting was done. They didn't finalize it that day. That doesn't come over on the invoice. And so then that gets missed when they are manually creating it, right? And then that process of manually creating it, eventually the doctor is going to close out the chart. That's going to create that data that should go over. And so then the next time to go to create the invoice, now you've got these codes that were never billed, right? So that's a source of error, not closing out the chart prior to creating the invoice. That should be the flow of data, right? And then you've got linking the diagnosis codes. This is something that a lot of providers miss. They put in the diagnosis codes, they put in the procedures, and any uh, exam EHR software worth its salt, you're going to link those codes there, right? And so then that should take out some of the error that is created from the billers. No offense to the billers, I'm not a doctor, right? No one's going to know better than the doctor why they did the procedure. And so then that code should come over and should be linked. But sometimes they forget to link it. And so now you have um, the the front desk person, the biller going, okay, well, let me link these. Let me associate the diagnosis code with the procedure. That can be a source of error. What makes sense to another source of error regarding codes, what makes sense to the provider may not be the literal um, medical policy of a given payer. And so oftentimes it's not specific enough, right? And so they may need
Sorry, oftentimes which bit is not specific enough?
sorry, thank you, Steve. The diagnosis code. They may say not otherwise specified, NOS. They may not drill down into the code set far enough. If you look into an ICD-10 book, the codes have little hierarchies, right? And so you can say not otherwise specified, not include laterality, things of that nature. When I was working at a waypoint here before I got into optometry, this is a very oncology business, and so they would do on cancer testing, and so they would put lump or mass in breast, and then the actual diagnosis that they needed was carcinoma, right? And so both are correct, but the payer may want a different level of specificity than what the doctor should needs to perform. So there needs to be a feedback loop because the doctor is not going to know that, right? The doctor's not going to know as they're performing these services, oh, this payer wants it drilled down to this. And so they should just follow their education, but there should be a good feedback loop to the provider to let them know, or even better, if there's a diagnosis code, there's something for the billers out there. If there is a diagnosis code that is the doctor has a habit of picking, but doesn't have the highest degree of specificity that's needed, is never actually, there are other codes that are applicable, because I'm not suggesting that they remove a code that is applicable, but if you have a habitual problem with the diagnosis code that isn't payable. It's not, it's in an ICD-10 book, you can drill down and see if it's red or green, right? And if it's red, one thing to do is one, educate the provider. Two, if there are other codes that are applicable and more specific, then a little life hack here is to remove the code from the available diagnosis codes or create a little common list for them to routinely go that doesn't include it. Try to help them out so that they're not going back and uh, making the same mistake.
Well, that's really helpful. So I know this isn't technically a question about terms, but I'm curious now. You said a couple of times that it's important to have a good feedback loop. What does a good feedback look? What does a good feedback loop look and sound like? What is the
Any
frequency
feedback
of the
loop,
feedback?
any feedback loop, because usually they're non-existent, you know. So the fact if you're going back in the provider or the other entity, whoever feedback loops could be for the front desk, could be for the biller, right? Is when and so any attempt at a feedback loop, you're already ahead of 90% of people out there in businesses out there, right? So I would say to you, Steve, and to the audience, you want to provide feedback, but it not be intrusive, and welcomed. So, as a billing company, we're not here to tell people how to run their business, but we want to give them enough information to reduce error over the course of time to the extent they want it, you know? And so, got to know your audience. Some people may want it much more frequently. We meet with our clients once a month, and but we communicate with them, every day, depending on the volume. So, but we have a once a month meeting with our clients to let them know what habitual problems they have and see if they can. We try to fix all the problems we can. right? But there are going to be things, maybe if the diagnosis code wasn't specific enough, if the policy number wasn't entered, there's not a card, there's not a copy of, there's no family members, things of that nature. So if there's a habitual problem, we'll go back to our clients and go, we're doing our best here, but know that the front desk person maybe is not entering in the policy numbers or things of that nature. So yeah.
And those are things that you want to build upon. So for those of you that are in the audience that are billers, that are doctors, that are practice managers, none of this happens overnight. A good feedback loop, while difficult to say, can be built one day at a time. It's just the understanding that it's not enough to fill out the form and submit the claim. You've got to learn from it. All right? Every day that you submit something, every rejection that you get, every denial that you get, one, it's something you've got to address right away, but really importantly, that the entire team learns from it to either avoid that mistake in the future or minimize them as much as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, Steve. Yeah, and we all experience feedback loops, right? Patients are a feedback loop. Um, they come back and tell you what's going on, and they have no problem providing feedback. Right.
That's right.
Sometimes internally we have some issues, either the audience being receptive or feeling like, okay, well, if I help this person, they're going to take it as an attack. And so I think building trust and a relationship with your partner and whatever it is essential into that feedback being accepted and taken with the right spirit.
Absolutely. All right. Next up on the extremely interested list of
Okay.
topics, there is a tie actually for rejections and denials.
Beautiful.
And I think it's really important that it's fitting. These two go together really cleanly, and it's important that everybody understands the distinctions.
Oh,
So, Shane, what are rejections and what are denials, and how are they different?
Oh, I love this question, everyone. And it's so key, really. People use these terms interchangeably, that they're synonymous with each other, but they are not. And so they will make a big difference in how your business runs. So a rejection is a claim that's not accepted for processing. And it could be rejected by the clearinghouse. It could be rejected by the payer, right? Let's take the most common example. If you had the date of birth wrong, if you had the policy number wrong when you submitted a claim, clearinghouse is not going to know that, right? It's going to get to the payer. The payer is not going to be able to find their member, right? If you had the name wrong, you had the date of birth wrong, they're going to look it up in their enrollment. They're going to say that person doesn't exist. That claim is rejected, right? They never accepted it for processing. That's a rejection. A denial.
Oh, sorry, before you go to denial,
Yep.
I apologize. I know I set you up for
No,
this. It's my fault. But
all good.
it really important to note, you had just mentioned in your previous answer that, what if the front desk person isn't getting the policy number? Similarly, what if the front desk isn't receiving or making a copy of the insurance card itself? And your patient comes in and his name is Jonathan, but on your appointment schedule, it's John. If you put John on the claim, denial.
Yeah, that's right. Especially like, yeah, you can go back and look with on Medicare cards, that happens quite frequently, right? Or um, Richard and Bob and Robert and Trey and all those kinds of things. Sometimes people put nicknames, hyphenated names. Sometimes that'll throw,
Right.
yeah,
And your patients aren't doing this to confuse you. They're doing it because they don't know. They're
yes.
not trying to make it harder for you. They just don't know how to make it easier.
Yeah, and some of it is just I mean, there's a rate of human error, right? If you're typing in the number, eventually you're going to transpose a number. That's just what it is, right? On our billing, for our billing service, we're going to go back and look and see if there's a copy of the card scan, right? See if the name matches, if there's paperwork in there, did the date of birth match, those kinds of things. Try to keep it off our client's plate. A lot of times they don't even know that we're doing it because there's an amount of human error there that it's not something to go correct. It is what it is.
Right.
So
Right. And
yeah.
it's just super valuable to have another set of eyes looking out for it before you're wasting time spinning your wheels, submitting claims that are just going to get rejected.
Yeah. Yep, yep, yep. And then the way those are corrected, I'm going to come back to them to this in just a minute, but let me draw the distinction to denials and then come back and explain for the audience how they differ and how you correct them, right? So the first one is a rejection. It was never accepted for processing. Now, let's say that it was accepted for processing, but you linked a corneal diagnosis to a retinal procedure, right? Corneal edema to a fundus photography. Then that's going to be accepted for processing, but denied because that diagnosis code didn't drive that procedure, right? It wasn't proper. And so that is a denial. The reason why it's very important to draw the distinction in these things, and I see this manifest often with clients who will, before we start working with them, they just go, they see all of their aging, they just mass resubmit, right? So that, oh, these claims aren't paid, let me resubmit them, right? The denials have already processed, right? And so if you resubmit a denial and you don't refer to the initial submission, then it's going to, in all likelihood, deny as a duplicate. Even if you change something, right? It was accepted for processing. If you go and change the linkage to a peripheral retinal degeneration for fundus photography instead of corneal edema, then when you resubmit that, except for Medicare, Medicare is an exception. The government's always an exception, right? But for any kind of private insurance, that will deny as a duplicate because you didn't refer to the initial submission. And so there's a box on the claim form. I think I want to say it's box 22, but it's over on the right, it says resubmission code. And so when it's an actual denial, you need to put a seven, the number seven in that field, and then the internal control number or the claim control number of the initial submission. Then it'll be processed as a corrected claim and not denied as a duplicate. They'll consider the changes that you did. If it's a rejection, and on the flip side of this, if it's a rejection, it was never accepted for processing. They have no record of the actual claim because it was rejected, right? So if you don't work those in a timely manner, when you do get to them, you'll get denials, timely filing denials. Okay. So the way you'd spot both of these, right? So if on denials, if they're going through and being submitted as original claims, that is not with the number seven and linked to a link to the internal control number of the previous claim, it's going to deny as a OA18. That's the adjustment code that'll come on the remit, right? So when you look at your EOBs or ERAs, if you see the number OA18 in the denial reasons, those are um, improperly resubmitted claims. Those are claims that were meant to be submitted as a corrected claim, but were submitted as an original claim. I know this can all get a little much, but OA18 would be denials that were resubmitted as corrected claims. Okay. And then if you're getting a lot of 29s, PR 29, or I should say, not PR. They're 29s that which is timely filing denials. Then those are claims that were rejected and just resubmitted as original claims, but not in time. Does that make sense?
It definitely did. So I'm going to apologize before I finish what I'm about to say, because as you were talking about it, I finally have like an analogy that might make sense. So um, a rejection is you got the bouncer didn't let you in, and then
Mhm.
a denial is you got in, but then you got kicked out.
That's right. That's right. Right.
Okay. Great.
Exactly.
That helps me to parse what that actually means. So,
Yeah.
um, now that we've kind of got an understanding of the difference between a rejection and a denial, how and in order to submit a corrected denied claim, you've got to reference it in that specific box with the number seven. Um, how does that affect timely filing as opposed to the timely filing of
Okay.
a
Yeah.
rejected claim?
Good question. So there's a timely filing to get the claim in, right? They have to pay the claim in a certain amount of time upon receipt. You have to submit it in a certain amount of time. Once it's accepted, and processed, even if it's denied, well, the clock starts over, right? There's an appeal deadline. So that buys you some time, you know? So on a denial, you have a little more time because the claim was actually submitted. So, for example, Medicare, they have a yearly timely filing. They have 1 year, right? And so if you got that in 350 days, now you have an extended period to go work that. So it kind of starts the clock over.
Got it. Okay, great. That is super helpful. As I go on with this, audience, if you have questions you'd like answered live, please put them into the Q&A or into the chat. We have definitely terms and a lot that we want to go over still, but as long as you're here and if you have a specific question, it doesn't have to be about obviously a specific patient or anything like that, but a situation that you've come across, or if you just want to see if you can stump Shane, it would be fun for me. So I invite you to do that.
It can happen. No one knows everything, right?
That's right. That's
What is
right.
it, that one thing? I don't even know.
That's right. That's right. So before we dive into other terms that we'd like to define, we're talking about rejections and denials. And I know internally for our billing team, we have a couple of tools that we've purpose built to address this problem. Um, how did we do that, and what do they actually do?
How do our tools help correct
Yes.
these problems? So a scrubber, that is first and foremost. And so all of all of the people in attendance, they have a scrubber. It's probably them. They are they are scrubbing claims. They're reviewing their claims, right? And trying to find there. And so out there. And so the individuals who are doing it, they have various levels of competence.
Apologies, Shane. Your internet cut out for a little bit. If you just repeat the
Oh,
last 10 seconds.
yeah.
My
Um,
apologies.
yeah, no. So the scrubber, all of the people in attendance have a scrubber. It's probably themselves, you know. But they have um, it's a hard job to remember all the rules, right? And so technology comes into play. And I would dare say it's impossible to remember all the rules. You have every payer has different medical policies. A lot of people are familiar with maybe LCDs and NCDs and CCIs. Those are the rules that CMS puts out there to say what procedures drive, what diagnoses drive what procedures, how frequently they can be done. And a lot of people use that as kind of the source of truth, but honestly, every payer has their own version of that. Just their medical policies. And it's impossible for everybody to know all of that stuff, you know. They generally follow the CMS rules, but not exactly. So, we built a beautiful thing about coming to Anagram is that the same developers that built this I'd say best in class, it's only in class that can go and pull out of network benefits from managed vision care. Those people set their sights on building out this technology. And so, yeah, we built a scrubber so that we can take out the data. It's called 837 file out of these PM systems and then import it into the software and then apply all these rules and uh, and try to catch these things so that we have a standard regardless of the account manager and the people. The human element of it is to standardize these processes and try to have all of the information. And it's a continual thing, right? Rules change, and so we built that. That's a big piece of the puzzle. And then a workflow denial tool. We have any questions about that before I move on about that
No,
particular?
I mean, it made sense to me. There are a couple of questions from the audience that I will ask you, but by all means, carry on with the workflow denial tool.
Okay. And then I see Michelle has a question that
I
I'll
got,
get.
I got it.
Okay. So a workflow denial tool. The people on the call, I'm guessing that they're using a clearinghouse of some sort. And they're maybe not. They're going to the payer sites and keying it in, and you get rejections, right? Those manifest there, and you can go work those rejections and keep track of them. But how do the denials come back, right? They come back on a remit on the EOB or ERA. And there's not really a workflow for that, right? You have to you're generally what happens at the practice is they're taking that payment data and then entering it back into the system, right? And if they're on top of their game, if the person doing the billing is also doing the posting, then at that point they would make a little list, they'd highlight their remit, put it on a spreadsheet or a document and go, okay, I need to go resubmit this one denied. And that's tedious, especially for a practice as it gets bigger, right? And so that becomes a source of error. Or maybe they're not doing that. Maybe they're posting it and trying to get all this money back into their system, and then they go run a report out of their practice management system on what's aged out, what's aging, the aging, right? And then they go try to go find the error. Well, now you've got to go back through the process. Okay, did it process at all? Let me go look up the remit. Was it there? What was the reason? It's not an efficient way to do it. No, throwing no stones. It's the only way to do it if you don't have the benefit of some technology, you know? And so I'll use one of my little colloquialisms. Cooking for a family and cooking for an army are different, right? And Steve went to culinary school. He could tell you, right? The best way to cook is if you do it, you're making a meal just for that person, right? But if you get a bigger and more, you get more people at the table, Steve, you probably have a different process for cooking for 100 people than you do one, right? And so as businesses grow, they lose the ability to effectively manage that much data, right? And so we built a tool called a workflow denial tool. It ingests those remits and then parses them out into work queues based upon various rules that are right? So by payer, by procedure, by adjustment code, so that we can keep our arms around it. And so that's a piece of technology that is essential to providing good service across the board.
I think the way you put it is super important. An individual can't actually keep track of all of the various rules for all of the various payers, especially because they're subject to change. And having software that is purpose built to keep track of that so that nobody is responsible for memorizing these esoteric lists of things that can change on a dime and change state by state. So having software that does that, wherever you get that, but I think the notion that everyone's got a scrubber and sometimes it's you, boy, does that feel extremely true.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the clearinghouses are scrubbing to a degree, looking for the presence of data, right? But they don't have the validity of the data, right? So if
Right.
you miss a spot in a claim, if you don't click a certain button, it should reject out at the clearinghouse. And you can pay up for certain um, other levels of scrubbing, but they're all lacking to a degree, to be honest with you. Um, so yeah, there's some other
Excellent.
things, but those are like the biggest ticket items that I think everybody can certainly relate to. Yeah.
Excellent. So we got a question from the audience. When it's relevant, is it okay to hold claims at the beginning of the year for, say, 2 months to avoid them being applied to a deductible? And I think so. With that question in mind, what's a deductible?
Oh, yeah. The amount the patient has to pay before the insurance kicks in, right? And so that's going to be we're talking about in-network claims. And well, I guess out-of-network claims are going to be subject to a deductible too. So don't let me misstate that. But the in-network deductible is usually what people are talking about, and on health insurance claims, right? And so the amount the patient has to pay, that is of the allowed amount. Okay, so let's say the billed amount was $100 for whatever procedure, and your contract with that payer is $80, right? It's usually going to be some weird number, $82.23, right? And so it's that amount that goes towards the deductible if it applies. There's a couple of things there I'd like to go into, if I may. With Medicare, Medicare is a co-insurance plan, right? And so it's a percentage of that allowed amount. So let's use that example that I just talked about. There's $100 for you've got it in your system for $100 for whatever, and then you bill it, and the allowed amount for that procedure, which is what you contractually obligated yourself. That's what CO stands for, contractually obligation. You obligated yourself to honor that amount. So now the deductible kicks in, right? And so you owe that, you have to bill the patient that amount, the $80.23, and that the patient has to pay that amount, not the 100, right? And so that is going to go to deductible. If you don't have that built into your system, if you don't have those numbers available, there's zero chance that you're not going to make an error. It's impossible, right? You're going to have the allowed amounts of your procedures per your contract built into the system so that you can collect the correct amount, even with either it's deductible or co-insurance. Co-insurance is a percentage of the allowed amount. Medicare requires the patient pay 20% unless they have a supplement. So you got to collect 20% of that figure, or if it's all going to deductible. So just a little tidbit for everybody is if you're trying to put your schedules, your fee schedules in your system, start with Medicare because it's absolutely necessary in order to reduce error down the line. So once it goes to as far as avoiding the deductibles, I'm going to get to that question in just a second, but I'd like to tell everybody and help everybody by letting them know that just because there is a deductible doesn't mean that it applies to the services that you render. That's a common mistake that we see is that people will go, clients will go pull the benefits for United Healthcare or Aetna or whatever it is and see that there is a deductible, say a $3,000 deductible, and then stop there, right? And then go tell the patient, this is going to go to, would like to run this test, it's going to go to deductible, or just, or schedule them back so that they can check on it. The fact that there is a deductible doesn't mean it necessarily applies to the services that you're rendering, right? Preventative eye exams, when they're covered by the health insurance company, and there are times when it is, typically aren't subject to the deductible. It's inherent in the phrase preventative, right? The insurance company wants the person to have those services because it prevents, in their minds, other medical conditions. So those aren't subject to deductible generally. Maybe 1% out of 100 are preventative services subject to deductible, catastrophic illness policies, maybe. But as an example, and the same can be said to a lesser degree about office visits. And think about your own health insurance. When you go, how often are your office visits subject to a deductible? Some of you, yes, but a lot of you know office visits are covered. They're not subject to it. So that same principle can be applied to diagnostic testing and surgical, which would be for us, punctal plugs, foreign body removals, cataract post-ops, obviously, but anything that starts with a six is surgical. Those are going to on the diagnosis on the procedure code, a six on the procedure code. So down that line is kind of the frequency that they're subject to deductible. Now, to Michelle's question, you have an amount of time that you can submit those claims, right? And it's within your contract to do that. Now, and I know providers that do it. So it's within your the realm of you have per your contract, right? You have so much time to sit on the claim. And I would say with Medicare, like most patients know that they have that deductible and they don't argue about it and you collect it and submit the claim. That's a mistake. So uh, someone comes in early in the year, they pay their amount that's going to go to deductible, and the practice doesn't configure the claim correctly. And so then the claim doesn't go out, doesn't hit their deductible, doesn't give them credit for that deductible. And so that's a problem kind of on the backside for the client. I paid my deductible. So so yes, I would say, Michelle, that people do that quite frequently. Yeah, they'll sit on them. Yeah, let somebody else hit that deductible.
All right, we've got a couple more deductible rated related questions. So one, if someone still has a deductible, can I collect for it in office? If so, how do I know how much to collect?
For sure, you can collect in office. You should collect in office. I would say that's best practices by a country mile. They they get out of the office but so the key and then they may not pay it, right? And so it's completely within your right to you just want to do it accurately, right? So to do it accurately, you need to be able to pull the benefits and understand them. Pulling the benefits, acquiring the benefits is one thing. Understanding them is another, right? And so, yeah, it's like a foreign language sometimes. It's not easy to understand. There are tools out there, patient responsibility estimators. That's an estimation, know that, and it tries to take the legwork because really what you're trying to get to is the answer, right? How much should I collect? The benefits you don't really, that's a means to an end, right? So you have to be able to pull the benefits and understand them, and then certainly you can apply to collect the deductible. You just want to make sure that you do actually create a claim, and you would do that in most practice management systems by go ahead and pulling down the insurance, moving the balance to the patient, and recording that invoice. The system will generate a claim even though the patient paid everything because you pulled down the insurance when creating the invoice. You do need to have your schedules in the system, your fee schedules, so that you can collect the right amount. Otherwise, if you just collect the amount you bill, that's not going to be per your contract. And now you've collected too much. And you'll be contractually obligated to refund the amount that was over. So in that $80, $100, $80.23, if you collected the 100 because everything was going to go to deductible and then submitted the claim, it's going to come back and say 80.23, you'd have to reverse that and I'll do a refund. So the fee schedules can change every quarter, but generally do not. They're going to change once a year and then marginally so. And so I would say the thing to do for everyone is, again, if you're in a practice management system, kind of worth its salt. There's going to be modules in there for you to take the amounts from your contract and build into the system so that when you pull down the insurance and creating the invoice, it's going to change the allowed amount to that figure, which is perfectly fine. Now you're not charging two different things. You're charging the same to everybody, but you have a schedule that you're contractually obligated. You know.
Excellent. So that has unleashed another like cavalcade of questions.
Okay.
So similar to it, it sounds like so the question is there an easy way to know or see what will be applied to the deductible?
Okay.
Um, yeah, so is there an easy way to know what will be applied to the deductible at the time of claim filing?
Yeah, and if I didn't, thank you for bringing me back to that, Steve, if I didn't get it before. And so an easy way. I don't think there's an easy way, period, to be honest with you. I'd be like pulling your chain if I said that there was an easy way to do it because the way these insurance companies write these policies is that no, there's not the answer is no, there's not an easy way. There's a way, it's not an easy way. And and it's not going to be the thing that people want to hear, but it's the truth. So let me give it to them. So there's going to be language in there, right? And so when you pull the information electronically, which is the easiest way to obtain the information, generally people aren't going to understand it because it's written in language that's meant to confuse people, right? And so there's certain questions that you want to ask, you want to get answered when when you're pulling the benefits, right? Is there a preventative eye exam? Is there a specialist office visit? Is there diagnostic testing? Is there surgical coverage, right? And is there a copay for this and are they subject to deductible, right? And likely, let's talk about the 80/20. Most of your clients are going to have United Healthcare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Medicare, which you can define easily, Aetna, Cigna. Those are the big boys, right? And so you're going to have some outside of that, but your patient base, if you start asking for insurance cards, which is another tip, ask for those cards when the appointment's made so that you can go get these benefits ahead of time and not under the gun. Excuse me. So, um, But you want to, there's certain questions you want to get answered. You're going to pull that information electronically and have a lack of confidence. That's the truth, right? You're going to have a lack of confidence about what you're doing. And that's a key thing for optometrists, right? Because there is a retail side to this and it's highly competitive. And if you charge people the wrong amount, then you're probably going to increase or decrease retention rates, right? You need to have this locked down. And so the less difficult way to do this is when you have pull it electronically and pick an insurance, the most common insurance that you have, and have a person call and get the answer to the questions, right? And there's a specific way to pull the data, and then you get the answers. This will take you, if you invest your time into this for 2 or 3 weeks of getting the answers from personally making calls, which is painful, right? But get those answers, pull the data electronically, and then match up the answers, right? You're going to see the same language over and over again. It's just as confusing. But if you'll get the answers, you call somebody and get the answers and match it up to the language, in a couple of weeks, you're going to start going, oh, this language means this, right? So that's the truth of the matter. It's not something that is advantageous, right? It's troublesome, right? It's hard. But that's the truth of the matter. That's the way to go get it and remove um, error. Yeah.
And
Uh,
that's certainly part of the impetus for having this conversation is in laying out like what are best practices for the things that you can actually do in a relatively simple way, and also understanding that some things are just won't be easy at first, but knowing that there is a knowledge gap that you can bridge with effort.
yeah, with effort, absolutely. And there's certain things that you should look for. Um, Subject to deductible, right? Sometimes they obscure it and they will put the benefit and lay it out in a way that puts it a little makes it difficult. Part of the feedback loop, absolutely. The So sometimes they'll uh, uh, divvy out the information so that the subject to deductible is in a different place than the coverage, right? And then so I would say if you don't see the language subject to deductible, it's got to be somewhere in there, right? If there is a deductible, there's going to be some indication, usually that phrase, subject to deductible, but sometimes they obscure it and put it in different places. So if you're really astute and you could take that information, look for that phrase, just know that sometimes it's going to be very obvious, subject to deductible, and other times, here's the benefit, and on another tab, it'll be subject to deductible. So it can fool you, but it should be in there. And yeah, the way if you're anxious about it, make a few phone calls.
Thank you, Shane. We have a couple more questions. One is sort of specifically related to this. One is less so. So I want to stay in this realm for just a moment. Um, how do we get fee schedules into the EMR or EHR or practice management system?
Yeah, it's in there. I promise you. Sometimes it's buried up. It's in different places, but you know, all the major PM systems are going to have it in kind of the admin section, right? I can speak to a couple, but I don't want to call out and favor any because we've got relationships with lots of them. But generally there's going to be a place in the admin section where there's going to be a table, right? And so a table for procedures and payer. And so then you can pick the payer, have a list of procedures, and then put in the amounts, right? And it is a separate little module in the setup. And then when you go to create the invoice, it's going to hit that table and pull the data. And then you've got that, you don't have to look anything up. It's just in there, right? Um, when you're contracting with a insurance company, it's a contract, right? They try to make it very this ambiguous, mushy mystery, right? It's an enigma wrapped in a riddle. But you got a contract with these people, right? You're obviously you're privy to the terms of the contract. That being said, a lot of people don't keep the contracts. They don't think about it when they put them in a file cabinet and then lose track of them. And so when you're submitting claims at the beginning of the year, there's going to be an allowed amount there. That is your contracted amount, right? And so there's some little, it could be plan specific. There could be some little issues there, but when you get those remits back, that's generally going to be your allowed amount, and you take that and put that into your system. And you also there's software out there. There's different software out there that's very good. Just yeah, it's a bit much. There's a lot there. It can be confusing. So you can get it from the entity that you're contracted with. You could get it from your remits, and you could get it from this various software.
Is is that so recommendations for how to best request our fee schedules and contracts from each insurance company from your remits from your wait, what's the best way to do that? Are they available online?
And this is a great conversation. I love this audience. We do this again, y'all come back. These are great questions. Provider relations, right? You don't want to call the individuals that you would call to check claim status, right? Nothing against those people. They're there to pull up the claim and look up. They don't have secure contracts. You want to call the insurance company and ask to speak to provider relations and go on the website and, whatever payer it is, and ask for that department. And they'll have your contracts and should be able to give them to you. And it's not this big, you're contracted, right? They should give it to you. Anybody you get contracted with and makes it hard for you to get the terms of that contract, you got to wonder what's going on. Right? No other business would you accept that as an answer, right? Healthcare.
Awesome. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's the this side of it that we've got to deal with. But one more question before we dive back into some of the terms. Any tips for workers' comp claims?
Don't do it. No. Um, no, they just I don't have a ton of experience in workers' comp. We do have some a client or two that are heavy workers' comp, and a stop in the road between vision businesses. I worked at a business, a pain management business that had a lot of workers' comp, and just the terms of those are very specific. And so you have to go read that language and know what you're getting into with the workers' comp companies. But honestly, I know that Trizetto, our partner, our clearinghouse partner, does have functionality for workers' comp. And so if somebody's got a lot of work that if they got a lot of it, then I would say, it's worth the time, the short-term pain for the long-term ease, and so go invest some time in it. But yeah, I'm sorry I'm not more help on that.
Well, I think it's a difficult sort of component of billing, and I think a lot of it depends with my extremely limited understanding. I think it also depends on the type of specialty that you practice,
Yeah.
right? Workers' comp is more prevalent among, vision therapy practices than
Yeah.
it is among generalist practices, as I understand it. So take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But yeah, to Shane's point, yeah. So the person asked the question. I work at a vision therapy practice. It
Yeah.
fits right in. Look, I knew something, Shane.
Yeah.
Not just a crazy beard.
Yeah, no, great. You know a lot. You kidding me? Yeah. I'll say that usually in these conversations, I benefit from because there's too much for someone to know everything. Someone that tells you they know everything, they're pumping sunshine. But
That's right.
yeah, I usually learn something from the audience in these, and so it's great.
Yeah, I cannot thank you guys enough for your participation, your fantastic questions. I'm excited to do another one of these to learn more. In response to kind of the initial poll, we have a couple of things that we still want to talk through.
Okay.
But because we're coming up at the tail end of this presentation, I want to invite everybody who's here, subscribe to our newsletter. We will send out another invitation for something like this next month. We're probably going to continue with definitions and Q&A. there's a ton of information that we would love to share that Shane has about general billing and the specifics of why we built what we've built to help. And we've also got, I've been an optician for nearly 25 years, and I've helped Anagram build up our software program to help with vision plan stuff. So, if you've got vision plan questions, if you think there's probably a vision plan that would benefit your practice to step away from, very happy to help answer those questions as well. So yeah, thank you again for everybody's participation, for the fantastic questions. Um, Shane, I know we have, as I'm pulling up kind of the next topic to cover, I know we have two sort of explicit goals in our billing, our RCM service, to help practice accomplish two things.
Yeah.
What are those two things, and why are those our goals?
Thank you. Yeah, they're reducing burden and increasing revenue, right? And so that's ultimately what everything comes down to for our clients is to take burden off their plate. And if they have some inefficiencies, if there's some leaks in the bucket, to plug those and increase revenue. So usually both of those things are doable. And so I thank you so much, all of you, for coming, and I'm so thankful. Yeah, the reducing burden and increasing revenue. And there's a lot of fancy things to go along with that, right? Scrubbers and communication and rejection and denial management and posting payments. And that's how we accomplish it. But at the end of the day, if we're not reducing your burden and increasing your revenue, we're not doing our job. So,
Excellent. Yeah, in my history, so I've been an optician for nearly 25 years. I've done a lot of consulting for practices, and those two things, like revenue, obviously has always been a concern for any successful business. But I think something that is often missed is how much burden is added as you enroll with and credential with more vision and medical plans. A lot of the industry wisdom has said, sign up for more plans, see more patients, sign up for more plans and see more patients. But what they don't tell you is how much more work each plan actually is. And it's not like incremental more work. There are layers of complexity and knowledge that you just don't get when you're signing up. And unless you dig in and become an expert in this, you're going to make mistakes. And some of them will be pretty costly. Some of them will be minor. But if you miss out on the opportunity to get reimbursed for the services that you've provided, it doesn't feel great, certainly, but it actually hits your bottom line much harder than you think.
absolutely it does. And, there's some failure by design in these processes. I guarantee you they've built some of this into their models. Their actuaries are looking at and knowing that, there's going to be a certain number of rejections and denials that are not resubmitted, that get lost in the shuffle. And it's part of their calculation, and part of the equation is to beat them at that equation, right? They expect you to fail to a degree.
Yeah. This is one of those reasons why when we have a conversation around vision plans in particular, a lot of the industry wisdom again will say, take all the vision plans and think of it as a marketing expense, right? And on one hand, sure, but marketing expenses don't do a lot of the things that vision plans do. For example, when you acquire a patient through marketing, you only pay the acquisition cost one time. With vision plans, you pay them every single year, so the acquisition cost actually goes up over time. But that's not even the thing that I want to touch on here. What's important, excuse me, what's important here is that the additional burden of each plan ends up costing you more, especially because when you get a new customer, there's nobody on the other end of that new cash pay customer trying to deny paying you. And there are people whose job it is at your
Yeah.
vision plan and at your
Yeah.
healthcare plan to deny payment of claims.
Yeah, which is crazy to think about, right? See, because then the value of the plan itself is reduced.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, so why pay a premium if so it's kind of works in their against their own self-interest there. to a degree.
Yeah, exactly.
But they have really, really, we may find fault with them, but they get really bright people to crunch these numbers and figure out
That's right.
how they can best stick it to you. Yeah.
And thread that needle, right, to keep people as involved as necessary, but deny as many claims as possible because
Yeah.
their goal is the bottom line. It's impressive in a way, but tremendously frustrating in a much more significant way.
That's right. So,
Well, everybody, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that from one of our guests here, Michelle. We've done great with open access so far. Really appreciate you guys doing this class. I've done this for almost 26 years, and there's so much I don't know because it isn't easily accessible. And that's absolutely true. Michelle, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I don't know most of this stuff because the information just isn't available. So our goal here is to pluck as much of that out of Shane's head as we can.
well, on the health insurance side, this vision stuff you have, yeah, it's second to none. So,
Well, I appreciate that. Everybody, thank you so much for being here, for registering, for your questions, for your participation. This would not have been nearly as informative or as fun for us if you guys weren't here asking your amazing questions. So, like, thank you. And please do register for the next one. We're going to do one of these at least every month. Um, I mentioned in chat on our YouTube channel, this was simultaneously live streamed. So you can go and subscribe to our YouTube channel, have full access to this entire recording right now. Otherwise, it'll take a day for Zoom to actually process the recording for us to post the final webinar here. But do subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can see this on demand and the next one and the one after that. Everybody, thank you so much. Shane, any final words?
no, just I appreciate you. Ditto to everything Steve just said. I can't say it better than that. So, thank y'all so much.
Yes, please do send questions. If you have questions, send them to steve@anagram.care. But thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank y'all. Y'all have a good night. Take care. That was wonderful. And it was a great audience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody.
They asked great questions. Oh, they're still with us. So y'all hear me bragging on them. All
They are.
right. I'll see y'all. Welcome.